I'm Erin Murphy. I am the proud majority leader in the Minnesota Senate. And we're here today to talk about the next chapter of our work on combating, preventing, and detecting fraud. Minnesotans are rightfully angry about fraud that's been committed against our state. I understand why, and our caucus is angry too. The status quo is not working to protect Minnesota from theft by fraud. Those crimes take money from seniors, families, young children, and people with disabilities. Fraud takes money out of the budget that should be invested in schools, in health care, and in household budgets. And it undermines the trust that Minnesotans have in their government and in each other. Our caucus has passed fraud prevention and accountability measures in each of our 3 sessions since we've been in the majority, more than any previous legislature, and we're far from done. We're committed to ongoing vigilance and oversight. And since last session, my colleagues have been talking with experts, advocates, critics, and regular Minnesotans to craft the agenda before us. What we've heard from Minnesotans is that they expect transparency, accountability, and for elected officials to put politics aside and fix this. Today, we're sharing our next steps with you to work toward that solution, not more government, but honest government that delivers on our commitments. We've heard from counties across the state for years about badly needed upgrades to IT systems, and both parties recognize without these upgrades leave us vulnerable to waste and abuse. We'll talk more about that today. Last week, a bill by Senator Mohammed to completely remake our program accountability and Medicaid programs passed the Human Services Committee unanimously. Last year, the Senate passed Senator Gustafson's bill to create an independent Office of Inspector General with overwhelming bipartisan support. Our House colleagues seem to be struggling to get onto the same page, perhaps prioritizing politics over substance. And we look forward to coming together with our House colleagues when they pass a single OIG proposal out of their body and to meet us in conference. The discussions around fraud has led to a lot of statements and speeches, mostly pointing fingers without a plan. Minnesotans are demanding solutions, hard work, and leadership. We're eager to lead through this critical work on transparency and accountability to protect programs that serve Minnesotans who count on them, and to restore Minnesotans' faith in a government of which they can be proud. And with that, I would like to introduce Senator Zainab Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Good morning. I'm Senator Zainab Mohammed. Last fall, the Department of Human Services identified 14 programs, and they called them high-risk programs. The list gives legislators an obvious assignment. If there are 14 high-risk programs, then it's our job to cut the number 14 to 0, get rid of the phrase high risk and protect the programs, and most importantly, prioritize the hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans they keep alive and well. Legislation I'm proud to carry this year would protect the integrity of delivering high-quality care from end to end, first before a provider ever enrolls a recipient, then again in lifetime as care is being delivered, and finally afterward with compliance, stronger compliance. Rather than catching and punishing crime long after the fact, sometimes years later, we can put safeguards in place that prevent theft before a single dollar is spent and stop it before it gets out of control. We can also, for the first time, rein in the influence of third-party entities that recruit and profit off of providers and have operated without accountability for years. The issues facing Minnesotans these programs serve are as complex as they are vital. But our work here can be to simplify and strengthen the delivery process in a way that puts people first and puts the trust back in the services Minnesotans need. And with that, I will introduce my colleague, Senator Hemsen-Yeager.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Amanda Hemmingson-Yeager, Senator for South Maplewood and Woodbury. Fraud doesn't just waste taxpayer dollars. It hits Minnesotans in their own budget and their pocketbook when they become victims to scams and fraudulent activities. Our fraud package strengthens consumer protections while also making sure that people understand their rights when interacting with service providers, as well as have a pathway to report fraud. One of those proposals is my bill to ban cryptocurrency kiosks, which are overwhelmingly used for scams targeting seniors and vulnerable people, as well as everyday Minnesotans. They rely on emotional manipulation, usually involving loved ones who are falsely experiencing trouble. We've seen tens of thousands of dollars fraudulently taken and sent overseas through virtual currencies which are transacted at these kiosk machines. Law enforcement has a great difficulty investigating and prosecuting fraudsters who use crypto kiosks. And after great attempts to regulate these kiosks in 2024, the depth and breadth of this fraud means we must ban them across Minnesota. We also have a proposal to establish a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in Minnesota, which is authored by Senator May Quaid. This will focus on investigating scams and protecting Minnesotans. Last year, Elon Musk and unqualified staffers at Doge, who are now being deposed, gutted the federal CFPB, which was an agency that recovered nearly $20 billion for over 200 million Americans since it was created in 2008 after the housing market crisis. A state-level CFPB would provide an avenue for Minnesotans to report consumer protection violations, scams, and fraudulent activity. Finally, Senator Latz will be introducing a proposal to strengthen the Minnesota False Claims Act, which empowers whistleblowers and strengthens protections and incentives for those who come forward. Since the act took effect in 2010, over $60 million in public funds have been recovered through enforcement work, and countless more have been saved through their deterrent effect. These proposals and more, which will help protect Minnesotans from fraud and scams, create a pathway for reporting and catching fraudulent activity when it happens. Next, I'll introduce my colleague, Senator Kupek.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Senator Rob Kupek from the other side of the state, from Moorhead, Senate District 4. We want to do everything that we can to strengthen oversight so fraud doesn't occur and protect Minnesotans from people who are looking to commit fraud. Prevention is critical, but we also need meaningful consequences for those people seeking to defraud our state programs and our people. Together with those consequences, we should strengthen our ethics rules to prevent conflicts of interest for state employees and those responsible for selecting and administrating grants. Senator Latz has legislation establishing new crime for theft of public funds with strong penalties attached to it, and Senator Gustafson here behind me has legislation to permanently ban folks who've been convicted of fraud from receiving state contracts. My own legislation would institute a one-year ban for legislative members from working at entities receiving direct appropriations and for agencies and employees in charge of administering state grants from working with entities receiving those grants. Minnesotans want to know that state funds are going to programs to their merits and effectiveness, not because of favors, because people are granting them to the system. We must remove any appearance of conflict of interest to maintain public trust and to ensure program integrity is upheld. And this is not a left or a right issue. This is a right or a wrong issue, and this is something that we've got to put into law. With that, I would like to introduce my colleague, Senator Erin May Quaid.
Good morning. I'm Senator Erin May Quaid. I represent Senate District 56 in Apple Valley. About 4 months ago, I chaired a select committee roundtables of senator and staff and commissioners from Dakota, Rice, and Scott County. That day, we both learned and were shown the systems that staff use to enroll Minnesotans in some of our most important programs. And to say that they are inadequate would be an understatement. It's quite shocking. On a black screen, a cursor blinked over spaces where staff manually enter names, codes, case numbers, and in the corner of the screen, right next to the Minnesota Department of Human Services, it says copyright 1994. It is 2026. We cannot attempt to provide services using technology that's 5 years away from being ready for Y2K. And I actually think the technology we had before this system was called paper. We have to start making significant investments in our human services technology at the state and at the county and local levels. Counties and their employees have been getting by on technology patchworks and clever workarounds that are time-consuming, costly, and prone to error. In human services, the systems of records, billing, and enrollments for millions of Minnesotans are complex enough, and people trying to exploit the weaknesses and loopholes are increasingly sophisticated for our 1994 systems. We've asked our counties to handle much of the record keeping on this program and left them without the tools to do it. The bad actors have better technology than we do. They have better technology than pretty much any person working at a county does right now. And it's all about to get a lot worse. The fallout from the one big bill that guts Medicaid and SNAP, somehow costs more money to deliver fewer services, is going to force counties to hire more people to deliver those fewer services, more people doing workarounds, more people doing patchworks and slight fixes or back-end system reviews, and more errors. This means hiring more staff, and I know having more staff that are younger, seeing a system that might have existed before they were even born, is not the way we can move forward here. We need to invest in our technology if we consider these programs important, and we do, and we want to fight fraud, and we do. And so we got to make sure we have counties and locals staffed with the appropriate amount of funding to do the jobs we've asked them to do. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Senator Gustafson.
Good morning. I'm Heather Gustafson, State Senator of SD 36. It's Vadnais Heights, White Bear Lake, and Lino Lakes area. Every year, I knock on hundreds of doors, whether I'm on the ballot or not, because I'm trying to hear concerns early, find out what people are worried about. And in my first year of office, I heard it clearly. People want the government to work, they want their tax dollars protected, and they want accountability without politics. And that's what led me to the Office of Inspector General bill. Minnesotans expect that when they pay into our system, those dollars go where they are intended. When fraud happens, it doesn't just waste money, it undermines confidence in the very programs that families rely on. Right now, oversight is fragmented across agencies. There is no single independent authority with the power to investigate fraud across all of state government, and SF 856 fixes that. My Office of Inspector General bill focuses on three things: investigations, safeguards, and early detection. It creates a centralized structure that improves coordination, identifies risks earlier, and ensures consistent accountability. The focus is on prevention and strengthening systems, not just enforcement. Part of why this bill has gained such broad support is that the Office of Inspector General is designed to be independent of politics and political influence. It doesn't matter who's in power, there will always be someone with the authority and independence to protect taxpayer dollars. That consistency is exactly what Minnesotans are asking for. 314 days ago, the Senate passed my OIG bill 60-7. I look forward to seeing it signed into law. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it back to Majority Leader Erin Murphy.
We have done our homework. We have introduced and are hearing legislation. We intend to get our work done, and with that, we're happy to answer your questions. Thank you for being here today.
Senator Gustafson, could you comment on whether or not you think the OIG should have law enforcement powers?
Yeah, I do think it should. We made that pretty clear in our bill. Our bill got 60 votes in the Senate. I think the law enforcement piece is important because it belongs to an independent office that can do things in a way that maintains that independence, especially when you're looking across agencies and vendors. Anybody who receives taxpayer dollars, whether they're a private or public entity, would fall under the jurisdiction of an OIG.
Are you surprised it's getting hung up this year?
You know, I think I actually felt encouraged by what happened. The days are all blending together. Was it last week, week before, when the House announced that, the House DFL announced their OIG package? Because I think that tells us that we now have all four caucuses on board. We've got the governor on board. Everybody wants the OIG. It's just going to take them working together in the House. We did it in the Senate. I feel like I did it the right way. I brought in Republicans early to work with me on the bill. I think that was the right thing to do, and I would encourage the House to do that. But it's really up to whether Speaker Demuth has the power and the ability and the skills to be able to bring people across the aisle.
And on the same coin, Leader Murphy, you need Republicans to get any of this done. It definitely seems like IT upgrades is the easiest thing to do, and maybe Senator Quaid on this too. Is that the number one kind of slam dunk issue on this list?
Yeah, there are a variety of issues on this list that are important, I think, for the program integrity and the delivery of services and restoring people's faith in what we do together for the people of Minnesota. We are very committed to the completion of the Inspector General office that Senator Gustafson has put in such strong position. And perhaps it is the politics of a tie that is getting in the way, but the Speaker does have the title and the role of Speaker, and we're counting on Leader Demuth, Speaker Demuth, to bridge whatever divide is occurring over in the House to get one proposal together and through the House. I also think that there is uniform support, and we've already heard it. We took action on this last session in the budget that we passed to put more funding into IT. We need to continue to do that. We're many, many years behind. We need to catch up.
Do you think it's gubernatorial politics getting in the way then, if you're specifically calling out Speaker Damon?
I sure hope not. She said she's committed to an OIG, and I believe that probably is important for her and for her campaign. But most importantly, it is important for the people of Minnesota for us to get this done.
And can I follow up? Just, sorry, one more on the IT upgrades. I mean, you're getting bipartisan support in your chamber. Do you think that will happen in the House then?
We always have to hope that we'll get bipartisan support. Again, I cannot overstate how old these systems are. We're talking 1994. And there's a few bills. Senator Wickland is carrying a bill to have urgent IT upgrades. I'm also carrying a bill that would amend our Minnesota Constitution to allow bonding dollars to go for tech infrastructure. This is part of our infrastructure. It's 2026, and our Constitution should allow us to borrow money for that.
What kind of money? I mean, what are you talking about? What do you need minimum this session?
That is a very good question. I think there's both the urgent, like immediate need. We passed $200 million, I think, in our 2024 supplemental budget. But then there's the long-term reform, and there's also the moving, right? If we're going to move people from one system to another. And so I think you're looking at many projects over many years. And I don't think it's possible to do from just one general fund budget. I think it is going to be bonding dollars over periods of time.
Have you consulted with Governor Walz at all on the OIG bill? He hasn't said a lot about his feelings on the structure, but I know Drew Evans talked at the press conference a couple weeks ago about his desire to have the DCA involved.
I think when we saw the report come out, it was a pretty strong indication that an OIG is what's necessary. I think that's why it's been a bill I've been working on for 2 years. It's complicated. It's not something, we're one of the states that doesn't have one. I am encouraged. It does seem that we are moving the needle towards more support. I believe he said publicly that he would sign the bill if it ever came to his desk. So I think our goal right now is to just get it to his desk.
Feel free to tell me to just go back and listen since I was late if I missed it, but did anyone address where your caucus stands on the governor's proposal for MCOs to phase away from those? Because that does affect things like how you modernize the IT, like where you send that money in the systems.
We didn't speak to that before you got here, and I think we're taking a look at the governor's proposal in its totality, and we'll reach a conclusion about that. But I don't know that we have one uniform, strong feeling about it. There are some members who think that's a good idea, but the devil are in the details on that.
And are House Republicans likely to not like that? That's hundreds of jobs in the private sector that would go away.
I've yet to hear them take a really strong stand on that, but, we will.
Representative Torkelson said DOA.
Well, there you go in the
specifically
House.
on that.
I'm over here in the Senate.
Yeah.
Senator Kupek, I'm looking at your bills here. I can't actually see the bills, but I'm seeing the descriptions here, and I'm wondering if there's already a workaround for banning agency employees from going directly to entities that receive the grants that they gave out by just going to consult for those companies that are receiving the grants that they gave out.
Sure. So the bill is brand new. As a matter of fact, it's still right here in my hand, just getting signatures on it. This bill came out of a hearing that we had in Health and Human Services. So our Office of Legislator Auditor presented to us, and we saw where somebody who works for DHS had issued these grants, lots of grants, and then to their sub-grantees, and then days later, jumped ship and went to work for that. So whether that's the consulting side of it, we can tweak that if we think that is a workaround and we need to do it. That's the beautiful thing about the legislative process. It goes through committee and we bring up all of those things. But certainly this is just not what we want. This is, we have rules in place for us. We've put in place about going into lobbying. We can strengthen those rules, I think, for legislators too, but certainly state employees who are giving out hundreds of millions of dollars of tax money to nonprofit groups should not have the ability to then, in a way, profit from that and go to work for those groups. So that's really what we're getting at here with this bill.
That employee went to work for a consultant, not for the agency or the company that got the grant.
I know you all have been talking about building trust, but what further message do you have to Minnesotans who say that these reforms sound good on paper, but they still have lost faith in state agencies and officials to fix this?
It is such an important moment for us, I think, in government in Minnesota. And as I read the O'Malley report, what became abundantly clear to me is that over many, many years, previous legislatures, previous governors have ignored warning signs. And I think it is incumbent upon us, those of us currently elected, and those who follow us, to commit to the vigilance necessary on oversight, to take the reports that we get from the legislative auditor, signals that we're getting from inside the agencies, and eventually what we get from the Office of Inspector General, seriously give it priority, and to make sure that we don't find ourselves in this position ever again.
How do y'all feel about prepayment review, especially in the high-risk human services?
So prepayment review is a program integrity tool that I think is very important, but we have seen numerous ways in which it is disruptive to services going to Minnesotans. And I think Senator Mohammad's bill is actually a great reason, prepayment review is a great reason why we need Senator Mohammad's bill, because right now we are seeing people who are receiving services and maybe their provider wasn't, turning in the right documentation, there's a prepayment review, and now somebody's losing services that they were actually getting that weren't waste, they weren't abuse, they weren't fraud. We've seen people being kicked out of their homes. We've seen people, come to committee saying, please don't make me homeless. And so that's why we need program integrity at the top, at the very beginning, to hold those third parties accountable, because this just isn't a long-term tool to be using. I think it's something that's being used right now in an urgent time, but we need better controls at the front end so that we're not just prosecuting fraud after it happens or prepayment review before we're paying out. I think it is, or withholds, right, before we're paying it out. We really need to make sure that the system from beginning to end is strong, and that way we don't have to do these urgent measures that could put people in danger.
Well, if we have time for one more, we gotta get these folks up to caucus before.
The OLA report this morning raises concerns that DHS was not using the authority it had to investigate. I'm just wondering, you're talking about making a lot of changes. Are you concerned that the agencies won't use the powers that you give them to do the things that you hope they do?
Part of the role of legislative oversight is to make sure that they are using the tools that have been given to them and the policies that we've put in place to deliver services to people. That's part of what we need to do and commit to that vigilance. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you.